Hello and welcome to the Wellness Trinity podcast, where we interview top holistic experts and bring you natural solutions for modern day wellness. Let's get started with your host, Dr. Jacqueline.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining the Wellness Trinity podcast. I'm Dr. Jacqueline, naturopathic doctor and owner of the Wellness Trinity, where we provide natural solutions for modern day wellness. So just a little disclaimer before we get started. What we provide here, the information is just for educational and entertainment purposes only. And everything that you are talking about, you use at your own discretion, and we're not taking credit for any repercussions or anything, so it's all on you. So without further ado, I'm excited to have Vanessa Becerra here. She is a good friend and a colleague, and she's such a wealth of knowledge with how to balance your brain's chemistry. And I probably am butchering a little bit, but she does neurofeedback. So Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jacqueline, for having me here.
Yeah, no problem. So first, before we get started, why don't you just kind of explain how you got into working with people's brainwaves?
Sure. My name is Vanessa. I am a CPC intern. I am also a neurotherapist intern, and I study people's brainwaves and how that impacts their health. And so the reason why I got into neurofeedback was after an unfortunate event in my family. We lost a sister, and my parents were in deep grief. I wanted to have some kind of methodology to help my family recover from this very unfortunate event. So I decided to upgrade my studies and get a little bit more in tune with the brain function and how it works and why our brain does the things that it does. And so today I'm here with Dr. Jacqueline to talk about sleep. And sleep is like the number one mental health aspect that unfortunately a lot of times where people are suffering from depression, anxiety, PTSD, schizophrenia, other diagnoses, unfortunately their sleep is compromised. And so how do we get the brain to function again properly, and how do we identify a brain that is not functioning optimally, and that sleep is so important. So if a client's coming to us saying that they're not sleeping well, we know that there's something going on in the brain.
Yeah. So how do you figure out what is wrong with the brain then?
How do we figure out? We usually do an assessment to see where people's brain waves are, and we compare that to the quote unquote normal ranges so that we can find out how we can help our clients.
Okay, so what are different markers? I know when I went to you, you saw my delta was off. And is that the only thing that might be off, or is there something else?
So we're looking at a couple of brainwaves when it comes to sleep. One of them is the delta brainwave. That has a lot to do with how our sleep health is. That is the slowest brainwave. And so obviously when we sleep, we tend to slow down. Our body slows down. Our mind slows down. Another one that we're looking at is the alpha brainwave, because that gives us the ability to relax. So if we don't have that natural ability to relax, it can be much more difficult. And naturally, we train the SMR, sensory motor rhythm, because if we elevate the sensory motor rhythm right here about midbrain, the person's able to relax better and naturally sleep better.
Okay, so how do you train them once you find that information?
Yes, so in neurofeedback, we're working on the model of operant conditioning. So we are conditioning the brain waves and reinforcing or rewarding the brain waves that are healthy. And we're not reinforcing the brain waves that are not healthy. So if we reinforce or reward those healthy brainwave patterns, naturally the brain gets trained to respond in a more positive pattern-like, and with enough training, we're able to get the person functioning as far as their sleep much better.
Okay. So can you explain a little bit why those brainwaves might be off in the first place?
Sure. A lot of times we live in a high-paced society, and unfortunately we're always on the go. We got kids, we got responsibilities, we got work, we got, especially in this city in Las Vegas, we got these like really weird schedules sometimes. People are working 2-3 jobs. And unfortunately, that kind of gives us like an inconsistent sleeping pattern. So, one of the first things we work on with our clients is having a consistent sleeping pattern. Like, what time are you going to sleep? Hopefully, you're going to sleep at a very similar time every night. Or, even if you're sleeping late, even if you're sleeping at midnight, but at midnight every night. So consistency, because our brain is on a rhythm. If you take it out of the rhythm, then that's when we start to see problems. And waking up too. Sometimes we have more control over the times that we wake up versus the times that we go to sleep. So consistency in the waking up is also so important. So waking up and going to sleep at relatively the same time can really, really help us out. And what neurologists recommend is anywhere from 6 to 9 hours. Because there are people who also oversleep, and oversleeping is not healthy either. Just like undersleeping is not healthy.
Okay. So when I went to you, we use different things like binaural beats, we use videos. What exactly is happening in the brain when you use those type of things to help try to balance out the brainwaves?
Yes, so we, when we do neurofeedback training, we're using visual stimuli to send a message to the brain when it is acting correctly. So through the visual stimulus, which is, a movie or a brain game, basically the brain is getting the message that it's doing something correctly. If the brain is not receiving the feedback, that's why we call it neurofeedback. If it's not receiving the feedback, the brain is basically not being rewarded, giving a message to our subconscious that, hey, you need to fix something. You're not meeting your target. So as they're meeting their targets with that visual representation, then they're able to be like, oh, okay, so I'm doing this correctly. Oh, and they get to realize in that moment, this is the state that I want to be in. This is the state that is correct for this frequency.
So they will actually feel themselves be calmer when the visual is coming out normal.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I remember looking at that, and it did feel like a mental game in my head. It's like, I gotta get it right. I have to make sure all these things are popping up in the right place. So that was quite interesting. So what are some other tools you might be using when you're doing neurofeedback?
Music, as you mentioned, so with the binaural beats, those are excellent. You can actually find them on YouTube, the binaural beats, and there's some in there for sleep. So if you put binaural beats for sleep, that definitely helps our mind relax. Anything that helps you relax is going to give you the ability to unwind, and hopefully that gives you the ability as well to simply relax and build that good habit of sleep.
Yeah, I've been listening to binaural beats a lot lately, and it's incredible how the frequencies in the binaural beats can de-stress you and do all kinds of stuff depending on what you're trying to achieve. So would you be able to explain a little bit of what's going on with those frequencies? Like how does it de-stress you? How does it make you sleep? What is going on in the body where sound, because sound can be therapy, sound can be healing.
Yes, most definitely. So sound has a frequency. So our brain is on a frequency, and we can measure it through neurofeedback. It hurts, right? So the good thing about binaural beats is that it is on a certain frequency, it is on a certain hertz, and a lot of times when you go on YouTube, it tells you the hertz that it's on. So if you're trying to look for maybe a good binaural beat to help you sleep, I would definitely try to make it a low frequency hertz, okay? Because once again, we want our brain to unwind, be in a slower frequency so that we can more easily sleep.
So lower hertz meaning like 10, or do you have a number?
Yeah, anything probably below a 4, I would suggest for sleep. Lower. Yeah. 4 hertz. The delta brainwave is usually from 0 to 4, so we want it to be under 4 hertz.
Okay, so I had no idea when we did the neurofeedback that when you're looking at the brainwaves that we were actually looking at hertz. That's very interesting. So the delta brainwave is at a low hertz. What about these other ones, like gamma and theta and delta? You know, when we talk about delta, there's a couple other ones you pull out.
Yeah, well, it's a hierarchy, right? So, you know, the theta, so it's the delta, then the theta, then the alpha, then the betas, and then the gamma.
Okay.
So all of these kind of have a different range into what we expect, quote unquote, normal.
Okay.
And that's actually how we define, you know, if this person fits within the normal range or if they don't. That's how we see what we need to work on. If we need to decrease a certain brainwave or increase a certain brainwave, that's how we define it.
Okay.
And then of course, like the different areas of the brain, some areas are a little bit faster, some areas are a little bit slower, things like that kind of thing.
Okay, so basically with our fast-paced lifestyle, we're actually almost training our brainwaves to be in that fast-paced frequency, right?
Sometimes, yes.
Okay, and that's why people can't sleep.
Yes, so sometimes because we are just always on the go, always fast, yeah, our brain is like fast, 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 go, go, go. So at the time where we are sleeping, you gotta unwind, and sometimes our brain is so kind of stuck on, you know, a certain pattern that it's so hard for it to kind of unwind and, you know, get into this lower frequency because, you know, for most of the day we're in this faster frequency. So, you know, it's training our brain to kind of slow down, especially at nighttime, you know, to stop thinking and stop worrying about the things we got to solve and the things we got to do. My phone's about to die, my friends. I live the fast life.
So we forget to charge our phone.
We forget to charge our phones. But yeah, it's definitely training our brain to just be at that frequency where we can slow down.
Okay. Okay. So when people come to me and they say they can't sleep, I'm thinking already I have a list because we both have clients. We find that insomnia or people not being able to sleep very well is really high at the list of people's challenges in terms of what people are coming to us with. And so I've compiled a couple different things in terms of supplements, or not even just supplements, but what are the deficiencies. Magnesium is one of the biggest things. I see magnesium deficiency pretty much in everybody when I do their hair test, and even other signs will come up when we look at their zytoscan. We'll see heart stress, or we'll see digestive challenges, which is also a clue to me that, okay, if anything like that is happening, they probably are low in magnesium. Magnesium is needed in over 2,000 enzyme reactions in our body. So without that, we can't sleep, but we also don't have energy, which is kind of interesting. It's needed for mitochondrial function. So magnesium is so key. If you want to sleep, you have to have magnesium. And you'll know if you've taken enough if you have a little bit of diarrhea. So with a good food-based one, like the ones that we use here, I find that most clients don't really have diarrhea with it, but some of them eventually you'll find that you have a diarrhea reaction if it's too much. So that's how you can kind of get an idea of how much to take. So aside from magnesium, we got tryptophan. Tryptophan builds serotonin, and serotonin builds melatonin. So if you're low on anything in that cycle, in that chain, then you're not going to be able to sleep. And when I do people's zytoscan, I can't tell you how many times I'll see tryptophan come up, or serotonin or melatonin, and which are signs that people are not sleeping too well. So there's that, and then I also do a mood questionnaire where I'll find out there's a bunch of questions for serotonin. So serotonin is a neurotransmitter. It's a chemical in our brain, and it makes us happy. It also, again, is a precursor to melatonin, so it makes us sleep as well. So I like to, instead of using melatonin to supplement, I'll go back down the chain and use tryptophan so we can build each thing up. So do you find that when people can't sleep, it leads to depression as well?
Oh yeah, most definitely. It can link to the depression, or sometimes that's precisely why people are not sleeping. They're depressed, or sometimes they're oversleeping, which is not good, because when we are awake and when we're asleep, we produce different brain waves. So if you are oversleeping, you're not exercising your awake brain waves, which the effect is sometimes people will actually feel more tired. So remember that if you're oversleeping a maximum of 9 hours, and trying not to take naps. I don't know why people keep on saying naps are such a good thing. Actually, naps are not a good thing.
Really, I like naps.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for being that bearer of bad news.
I don't know if I heard of that, but
the reason why is if you're taking naps during the day, it will more than likely affect your sleep at night.
Oh, at night, okay.
Because if you already had, that sleep portion satisfied at nighttime, you're kind of like wide awake. So
I guess I could see that. What if it's like a small, because I think taking a little rest in the middle of the day, sometimes we just need to kind of just lean back and relax. And I find it personally recharges me. It's like having a cup of coffee again.
Yeah.
But I could see if you take a very long siesta. What do you think about that? In other countries, they're doing this whole,
siesta. Yeah. It just depends on what stage of sleep you're on. So if you get into the REM sleep, that definitely is going to have a different impact versus you being like the first 2 stages of sleep, which is just kind of like when you're relaxed. You can close your eyes, but you're not completely asleep. That for me is good. Maybe that's more of a form of meditation. You kind of still wait for your resting. Versus, which that can be actually very helpful because meditation, even if you do about 10 minutes of meditation per day, that equals about 2 hours of sleep and rest.
Wow.
So that can be very useful, but you actually having full sleep and going to sleep, 2 hours, that's going to impact your sleep later on that night, which will ricochet and affect you during the rest of your week. So we usually don't recommend clients who are having sleeping issues to take naps. Now, if you don't have sleeping issues, you want to take a nap, that's a different story. But if you are having sleep issues, then my suggestion would be to try to manage that. And what I usually recommend my clients to do is if they feel like taking a nap, just try to go to sleep earlier. Go to sleep at 8 instead of going to sleep at 10 or midnight, or just go to sleep a little bit earlier so that you can feel refreshed the next day. Because that's the thing, not only does it affect depression, it affects anxiety. If you don't have enough sleep, your brain can't totally function, and then we get more stress, we have more anxiety, we develop tension, things like that just stem from us not sleeping well. And then we're irritable, we're angry at, people around us, we're not efficient at our job. So there's all these repercussions that just don't affect how we feel, but our surrounding and our environment, how we impact that. So another thing is people who are withdrawing and going through any kind of withdrawal of an addiction, usually that will also make the brain not be able to sleep as well. Because their brain is kind of like rebooting without that substance. So we talk about alcoholism, we talk about even people who use marijuana, people who use meth, all these other addictions that, when people are going through treatment and they're able to leave that drug, even nicotine. So even as cigarettes and stuff like that, that will change the way that people are sleeping.
Yeah, no, and that makes complete sense. So I can tell you from a naturopathic side, when I do hair tests and I see cadmium, for example, if people smoke, they can have cadmium toxicity. And it can come in other forms probably, but cadmium is one of the main things that we link to cigarette smoke. And it makes people more hyper, which if they're trying to detox from that and they're pulling out the metals, you actually can experience symptoms of the metal before it completely gets out of your body. So what happens is you take certain supplements or you finally relax and the toxin is mobilized. And so when it's mobilized, it's going through the bloodstream before it gets out in the body. And that's why we can have what's called a first timer reaction, or we actually re-experience some of the symptoms that we had while taking that substance. So that makes complete sense what you're saying, and why they can't sleep if they're trying to withdraw from their type of drug, the drug addictions that they had.
Yeah, so it's very important that, if they are going through symptoms such as these, that they look for, that professional help to assist them in that transition, because what will happen if not, people will more likely relapse, or they will just be like, this is affecting me too much, I'd rather just not do it. So it's good to reach out to people, and we're always here to help. We are servers of the people as health professionals. I always tell that to people. I'm just like you. I have my own health challenges. She's my doctor, and she's great. And so we don't know everything. And as human beings, it's humbling to come to other people and say, hey, why don't you teach me about this, because this is your specialty, this is your area. Exactly. And we don't have time to study everything.
Right, yeah.
Well, I don't want to study everything.
Yeah.
So
I don't study brainwaves the way she does too. So she'll look at my brainwaves and she does other services on me that I don't have time to study because I'm trying to figure out how do I get chemicals out of people's body.
So come to us, come to us. You can find me at Brainwaves and Counseling. You can find Dr. Jacqueline over at the Wellness Trinity. We're here to serve, we're here to help. My phone is about to die, so I'm going to log off on mine. Please add her. We'll continue with the podcast. We're going to have a podcast available for you guys at the end of July with Dr. Jacqueline. Can you share a little bit about your podcast information?
Yeah, so this podcast is on iTunes, it's on YouTube, and it's on Podbean. So those of you guys that don't have an Apple, you're missing out, but it's okay. Or you can download Podbean. Now I'm trying to get it on some other platforms as well too. It might even be there. I think some of it just kind of goes, once I click the button, it goes to other places. But I'm trying to figure out where it's going to. So those of you who have Androids, I'm in the process of figuring that out. So otherwise, Apple, iTunes, and you can find me on YouTube if you want to watch the video. So we'll sum this up, and one thing that I personally want to say is you have to get rid of the toxins if you want to sleep well. If your liver is all backed up and your gallbladder and your gut, you're not going to sleep very well. It's just the body's having a hard time dealing with its toxic load. So it takes away from being able to sleep. We need nutrients, we need the body functioning to be able to actually calm down, which is kind of interesting when you really think about it. It's more than just a mental game. It's a physical as well. It's both. It's both together. So doing some of these things that we talked about with the binaural beats, working with Vanessa to see where your brainwaves are in balance and being able to balance those out with the therapies that she does as well too. It's a perfect marriage to any of you guys that use the supplements that I recommend or are on the detox programs that we do here. And such a blessing to be able to work with you in Las Vegas here and abroad. You work with a lot of people abroad on this stuff too, right?
Not currently, but in the future.
Oh, okay.
Because I can't do their brainwaves, online and stuff. But yeah, definitely something to look forward to. I know that I do aspire to go out internationally and train people because neurofeedback. See, the thing is, in the U.S., we're so lucky we have neurofeedback. There's countries where this therapy does not exist. So that's one of my main missions in life, is to be able to bring this type of treatment to other places. So I'm going to close out my channel over here, wishing you lots and lots of love. I'm going to continue with the podcast with Dr. Jacqueline. But if you need to find us, we're here to service you, and wishing you a blessed, blessed day.
So, anything else that you wanted to mention?
I think that it's very important to treat the brain and the body together. And yes. I know that you're a specialist in the body, and the brain is part of the body. Mm-hmm. So if we're not training the brain, if we're not treating the brain, right, we're missing a very important aspect.
I agree.
And there is sometimes a stigma to coming to a counselor or a neurologist or a neurotherapist. There is this underlying stigma that, something's wrong with me. And we need to be beyond that, because these kind of health complications, especially when your sleep is compromised, can have other issues. When we think about suicide, there is research to support that a lot of people who have died of suicide were not sleeping well.
Yeah.
And so if you think about that, and you think about, cardiovascular diseases and other factors, there's this big link to just not sleeping well. Right. And the thing is, when our body goes through the stages of sleep and achieves REM sleep, all of our system recharges. It's kind of like being able, like our cell phone. We don't charge our cell phone, gonna die. Mm-hmm. So it is the same concept here. Is like if we're not recharging ourselves every day, because you know, we have a job, we have children, we do so much as human beings, but the thing is, if you're not functioning well, if you're not loving yourself enough, if you're not taking care of yourself enough, it's going to be harder to have good relationships with your children because you're going to be irritable and snappy, or even with your husband or wife, boyfriend, etc. It's going to be harder to be a good worker or a good business woman or man, good CEO. Why? Because you're on edge. And so that is not just going to affect your body, it's going to start to affect your relationships.
Right, yeah. And I that's the one thing that when people come in here, I already see the light at the tunnel, end of the tunnel, as long as they're willing to take the steps. With their relationships, it's huge. When people physically are feeling better inside, their mind is working better as well too, and it just spirals into everything else they're doing in life, whether it's their business, their relationships, their other activities. Like everything else gets better. Like you said, health is happiness, and that's mental, spiritual, emotional, physical. I mean, the whole shebang. So when something is, any of it is off, then it spirals into all these other things, and then you wonder why. Well, why can't I have a good relationship? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? So that was a very good point that you brought up.
Yeah, and even financially, because if you think about it, we're not as productive because we don't have that much energy, right? So financially, if we are sleeping well, we're going to be doing more and creating more and being more creative and thinking of new avenues, you know, of different ways that we can explore our talents. But if we don't have that energy, we're not going to be reaching our goals. We're not going to be able to, you know, sustain ourselves the way that we want to sustain ourselves. And I think every human being deserves to be successful. And you know, it's unfortunate when our health is not there and it's compromised. Like that, for me, health is like my number one value. If I don't have health, I'm not going to be a good mom. If I don't have health, I'm not going to be a good businesswoman, a good counselor. It's just, health comes first before the other things, right? I can't work if I'm not healthy.
Exactly. And I find that with a lot of clients that come to me as well too, where they're kind of in this pickle is the word I'm thinking, where they come to me and it's like, okay, well, they can't really function at work, and then these treatments and these supplements and whatever they need to do cost money, and it's an unfortunate side of the whole thing. Obviously, me and you love what we do. We love people, and we would do this for free if we didn't have to make money, right? And even things like this, like I would just give them away for free if I could. But at the same time, like it's just the society that we live in it operates on money. And so when we don't feel good, we can't produce as well. You know, I have people that are so able and willing and very smart people where their brain function is off just because their physical body is off, or they're not sleeping like what we're talking about. And so they can't work as many hours, or maybe they can't even work at all. So I was actually already thinking about that when you mentioned finances, which I'm glad that you brought that up. It's another part of our health is having that in order as well too. I could tell you too, I've been there where it's like I haven't had money and I'm living on a shoestring, and there's a lot of stress with that, right? You know, and you know, it's not, my life is nowhere from perfect now that in that way, but I could tell you it feels a lot better to be a little bit more stable, right? And then how that affects sleep. It's like we're able to go to bed thinking like, okay, I have a roof over my head, I have food in my mouth, my family's taken care of, and so it's a lot easier to just relax at night in that situation too. So sometimes it's kind of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Like, how do I tackle this? It's like I'm not feeling good, but I need money, and so you know, that's what prayer comes into. So.
Well, health as a value, I think, is important, because if we uphold our health as a priority, then we're not going to have to choose what comes first. You know, like I said, if I have my health, then things will align themselves. And we can decide to spend money on wellness, or we can decide to spend money on emergency services and surgeries, and those are usually more expensive.
Right. Yeah.
So
and not so pleasant.
Yeah, and much more painful. So it's really up to us. You know, I mean, you can go see a counselor or you can go to a psychiatric hospital, and usually it's 10 to 20 times more expensive for 3 days in the hospital, right? And that money you could use for a whole year coming to see a counselor. So it's knowing where your investments better spent, because either way you're going to spend the money. Yeah. And so you get to decide how you do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, well, that was a great, just a lot of great information about sleeping well. And, I know that we're going to have several other talks that are going to be able to marriage our expertise, which is wonderful, because we really have to look at the whole person. We're not just the body, we're not just the mind, we're not just the spirit. And I think a lot of times in the holistic field or health and wellness, we're segregating everything and thinking like, oh, it's all spiritual, or it's all in your head, or it's all the body, but it's not. And so that's why I love what she's doing as well too, and think that it's a great partnership to have people that are expertise in these different fields that can marry the whole thing together. So again, thank you for coming on this show, Vanessa. And do you want to tell the listeners where to find you?
Find me at Brainwaves and Counseling at Las Vegas. You can check out my website, www.brainwavesandcounseling.com, and I will have my phone number there.
All right. So yeah, give her a call and make sure you schedule a session with her at some point. And I know some of your services you do abroad as well, right?
Correct. I am in Pahrump. I do contract work with different mental health agencies. Yeah. So I'm there helping some of them out. I'm over at a sober living home now, so I'm getting a lot of clientele.
Yeah. So she's in high demand. It's a good thing. She's helping people. So anyway, do you have any last comments before we wrap this up here?
No, lots of blessings, lots of love. Take care of yourself. Love yourself. Put yourself as a priority. You deserve your time. You deserve your money. You deserve your health, and put that first.
All right. Yeah. So thank you again, Vanessa, for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Wellness Trinity podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more wellness tips to help you achieve optimal health. Don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best content. See you on the next episode.